Hey everybody, this is Randy Brown with Camuman 2021 and the Mayor of Magic coming at you live and direct. Well, it's not live, but I'm alive right now, so hopefully that counts. Today we're going to learn a little bit about failure because a lot of people fear failure. They don't know how to use it properly and they don't know how to deal with failure in their lives. So I am going to be doing this entire podcast on failure and why you should not fear it, how to handle it, and how to cope effectively with it. So now the first thing I want to cover, failure is only possible with certain time constraints. Like let's say you give yourself a deadline to do something, you're supposed to have something done by December 25th. I mean, if you don't reach that deadline, well, guess what? You failed. But here's the thing that you can do so you'll never fail ever again. If you fail to meet a deadline, just extend the deadline. That's all you really have to do. Then you will never fail ever again. And, Richard Bandler also says there is no failure, there's only feedback. The only real failure that anybody ever has is death. Like, death is the only failure you cannot come back from. So you need to not fear failure. No failure is permanent. Wayne Gretzky says you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. All right, so take those shots. Even if you feel like you're going to fail at something, just go on and keep on trucking. And, Dr. Phil says you either win or you learn. Okay? No matter what you do, just do not stop learning. Do not stop moving forward. If you fail, just pick yourself up and try again. And this is a quote from Ross Jeffries, the famous seduction and pickup guru. He says, 99% of the time, the worst that can happen is nothing will happen. You can use that in your talks with women, and you can also use that in life. 99% of the time, the worst that can happen is nothing will happen. Like you write a book and the worst thing that can happen is just nobody buys it. So, and another thing you should realize, especially in your dealings with women, is every no is one step closer to a yes. You might have been told no 1,000 times, but guess what? Eventually, if you keep on asking and you're determined and you keep on trucking, no matter what you do, eventually you're going to get a yes. So don't be afraid of failure with women. Keep on trucking, just keep on asking, keep getting those numbers, keep on going out with dates, because eventually you're going to find the one that you click with, the one that, gel with. Ross Jeffries also has this saying, I don't get rejected, I just find out if a woman has good taste. And again, if you fail a lot, here's one thing you need to remember. If you can't reach your goal by your deadline, just extend the deadline. A lot of people give up on a lot of really cool things just because they didn't meet the deadline. And it's like, if you want to write a book in a year and you only get 75% of the way through that book, don't give up on writing the book after a year. Just, say I'll have this done by midway point of next year. And if you can't reach that deadline, say I'll reach it by December of the next year. Just keep on trucking. Don't give up. And another thing you want to remember is that every important contest takes place every year. Like every contest that is worthwhile, like the Oscars, the NFL playoffs, the NBA playoffs, the Emmys, the Country Music Awards, all of those contests take place every year. If you fail one year, just keep going on to next year. There's no reason to give up. In sports, there are certain age limits that they have for players. But if you're an 18-year-old and you don't make it the first year, try again the next year. Try again the next year after that. I think the cutoff for NFL and NBA players is like 30 to 40. So if you're trying out for the NBA or the NFL, don't give up. Just keep trucking. If you're an 18-year-old, that means you have about 12 good years for you to buck it up, work out, keep doing what you're doing, and just keep trying and applying, and that's all you can do. Another thing I want to say is that disappointment requires adequate planning. Now, one dear friend of mine told me, Randy, if I don't get this thing working in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to throw this computer across the room. And that was a very dumb and stupid thing to say because, luckily for him, he managed to figure it out in 30 minutes. But if he would have given up after 30 minutes and chucked his computer across the room, he wouldn't have a computer anymore, which would just be dumb and stupid, And he says, if I don't get this thing done in 30 minutes, I'm going to freaking just demolish this computer. And what would have happened if he didn't demolish his computer and he didn't get it done in 30 minutes, but he got it done in 40 minutes? Let's say he did trash his computer. It would have just taken 10 more minutes of him fiddling around with the computer in order to fix it, So that was, he was lucky that he got it fixed in 30 minutes. But you can't always count on luck, people. Luck is fickle. Luck is something you can't count on. That's why they call it luck. So one thing I want to talk about is that your progressive failures teach you what's right. Like if you fail at writing a book, people are going to give you feedback on why it failed, what went wrong. And there's a good book on failure called Failing Forward by John C. Maxwell. And in it he talks about a class. They broke these people up into two groups. The first group was supposed to make 30 pots. They were supposed to make 30 pots, and that was how they were graded, is by how many pots they got done. The second group, Group B, was a group where they were supposed to make the perfect pot, the most beautiful pot they could possibly get. And if they made the perfect pot, they made an A+. So basically what happened was they found out that the people who, did more failures and went through more permutations of how to make a pot, they ended up creating more beautiful and stylish pots than the Group B, which was supposed to make the perfect pot. This goes not only for pottery making, but this also goes for writing. Because Ernest Hemingway himself said the first draft of anything is crap. He didn't use the word crap, he used a different word, but because of the YouTube algorithm, I can't exactly say that word. Ernest Hemingway, if Ernest Hemingway's first draft was crap, how could you expect to do any better than Hemingway? And if you don't know who Hemingway is and you want to be a writer, you really need to seriously think of, studying your betters. Studying people who came before you, because Ernest Hemingway is one of the most famous writers of all time, and if you want to be a writer, you should do a little history on writing and know a little bit about the history of novel making and publishing. Because if you want to write a novel and you don't know who Ernest Hemingway is, that's pretty bad. Hemingway, one of his novels was rejected 27 times. So that should give you a little insight onto the failure of Ernest Hemingway, but he was one of the greatest writers of all time. He wrote some of the greatest novels of all time. If you don't know who Ernest Hemingway is, you should at least know who Stephen King is. Now, Stephen King's Carrie was rejected 27 times as well. So, and then Stephen King has a bit in his book where he tells people he had a nail where he would nail his rejection letters to the wall, and eventually he got so many rejection letters from editors and people who would publish his book that he had to go and he had to purchase a longer nail, like a 9-inch nail. So if Stephen King gets rejected, that should put a little feather in your cap there. You can't expect to be perfect right off the bat. Your first draft probably isn't going to be perfect. Your first book is probably going to be crap. But you got to realize it's your first book. You can't be expecting perfection. You can't expect an Oscar-winning script the first time out or your first go. It's just not going to happen. And one technique that I use in my writing is for the first draft, I purposely write crap. Because here's the thing. When you purposely write crap, you're gaining a lot of material for yourself to use. And the thing you want to remember is that no matter what you write, you can always edit it. If you edit something long enough, you're going to have something worthy of publishing. I know, because I've written 4 books, and I have used this technique over and over again. So if you're a writer and you're blocked, or if you're a writer and you just can't stand what you write, just write crap. Write crap, and then on the second and third drafts, edit the crap out, and you will have something publishable. The last thing I want to cover is famous accidents and famous failures. Okay, so these 2 are important because these are some very important things that you need to realize about failure. Is number 1, penicillin, which is one of the most life-saving pharmaceuticals of all time. Penicillin has saved more lives than almost any other thing in history, and yet it was an accident. It was not discovered on purpose. And also another thing that was discovered on accident was peanut butter. I mean, and how many people out there have had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? I think probably every person who's going to listen to this podcast has had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The Slinky was created by accident. The Slinky was originally supposed to be a coil that would hold things steady on a ship, but the person who invented the Slinky accidentally knocked it off the table, and it did what Slinkies do, and there was the invention of the Slinky. Silly putty was also an accident. Post-it notes were also an accident. Velcro was also an accident. And one of the most helpful things of all time, X-rays, guess what? Yeah, those also were created by accident. Lastly, I want to talk about some famous failures. James Dyson, the guy who created the Dyson vacuum, failed 5,126 times. Thomas Edison, there's a lot of different numbers on this, but they're all really large numbers. Some people say he failed 999 times, but the one article that I was reading said Thomas Edison failed 1,001 times to create the light bulb. But here's the thing. Sometimes he would create a failure, and he would go, that's interesting. One time he created an explosion with one of his inventions, and his assistant said, oh my God, this is worthless. Are you crazy? Like, this, we're never going to figure out how to make the light bulb. And he was like, well, we didn't fail. We just failed to create a light bulb, but we did create a small explosion, and that can be useful somewhere later on down the line, perhaps, maybe for the military. We'll see. And then Colonel Sanders, he had his chicken recipe, and he went all over the U.S. trying to sell his recipe, and it took him 1,009 times until he got somebody to buy his recipe. Michael Jordan is a very famous failure. Michael Jordan has missed thousands of shots. He's missed about 30 game-winning shots that would have won the game for him. And then also, what a lot of people don't know about Babe Ruth is Babe Ruth had one of the highest record for home runs in the history of baseball. But what a lot of people don't know is that Babe Ruth also had one of the biggest strikeout records of all time. There were some people who called Babe Ruth the strikeout king. And then Walt Disney failed a couple times trying to get his Magic Kingdom up and running. It didn't just happen overnight. And he tried to get the funding several times, and he failed several times. J.K. Rowling, initially, people didn't want to buy her book. She failed 12 times. And each time, the publishers told her, look, this book is 600 pages long. No 5-year-old or 6-year-old is going to take a 600-page book and slog through it. It's not going to happen. And then finally, she got a publisher what happened is that parents were reading the stories to their children, and the children freaking loved it. And then also, Dr. Seuss was rejected about 32 times. That was his first book, and as we all know, Dr. Seuss went on to greatness. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, just remember that many people have failed before you, and you yourself might fail many times. But if you don't give up, you might just turn your failure into a success, and you might, succeed where many others have failed. So my name's Randy Brown for Cameo Man 2021 and the Mirror Magic, and I will see you later, alligator. Alright, bye.